So today, we're going to dive into the life and work of an 18th century English poet named William Cowper. This is a guy whose words could paint these incredible pictures of both serene, beautiful light and the most profound, deep darkness. It's this fascinating and, well, deeply human contradiction that makes him so compelling. And that really brings us to the core puzzle of his life, doesn't it? How can the same person write these uplifting hymns of faith, songs that we've been singing in churches for centuries, and at the same time write poetry that's so bleak it feels like a cry from the absolute abyss? That's the question we're going to try and unpack. All right, so to really get a handle on Cowper, we've first got to see where he fits in the grand story of English literature. And the thing is, he was a little bit out of his time, kind of standing at a crossroads between two huge artistic movements. People often call him a precursor to Romanticism. Now, while most poets of his day were all about these really formal, structured styles, Cowper was doing something totally different. He was writing with this raw sensitivity about his own personal experiences, his emotions, his deep connection to nature, all themes that, would later become the bread and butter for famous poets like Wordsworth. He was ahead of the curve. But here's the thing. This focus on his inner world, his individual experience, that wasn't just some artistic choice he was making. For Cowper, it came from a life that was really defined by some intense and very private turmoil. And this right here is the heart of it all. The man who wrote with such peace and beauty about the quiet countryside was, in his own mind, fighting a lifelong battle with severe mental illness. This fact is really the key to unlocking that profound split we see in his work. You can feel this so powerfully in his final, haunting poem, The Castaway. He used this image to capture the absolute depth of his pain. He literally saw himself as a sailor, shipwrecked and lost, completely abandoned, not just by other people, but by God himself. For a man of such deep faith, you can only imagine how terrifying that must have been. What made Cowper so remarkable, and in a way so modern, was his honesty. I mean, think about it. In an era where these kinds of struggles were completely hidden away, deeply stigmatized, he put his feelings of isolation and hopelessness right there on the page. He was giving a voice to an experience that almost no one dared to even talk about back then. But here's the twist. Even in the middle of all that turmoil, his writing wasn't just a record of his pain. It was also his salvation. It was a lifeline, a way for him to find moments of peace, to express his faith, and to connect with the world. And this is where we see that other side of his work, the light to a shadow. You've got the Only Hymns, which he actually co-wrote with John Newton, the guy who wrote Amazing Grace. These hymns are just filled with hope and faith. And then there's The Task, this sprawling, beautiful poem that's just a love letter to the simple, quiet country life. I absolutely love this story. The origin of his masterpiece, The Task, is almost ridiculous. A friend playfully dared him to write an epic poem about a sofa, and he actually did it. But he used that totally mundane starting point to launch into this massive 6-book meditation on everything from nature to morality to the human condition. It just goes to show his incredible gift for finding the profound in the everyday. But for every single one of those tranquil moments he managed to capture, there was an equal and opposite expression of despair. His pen could be a tool to create peace, for sure, but it was also the only way he could let out his deepest suffering. And the contrast is it's jarring. On one hand, you have The Task, this peaceful celebration of the world around him. Then just over a decade later, you get The Castaway, a poem that is soaked in spiritual abandonment and total loneliness. It's almost hard to believe they came from the same person. These two poems are probably his most intensely personal. Lines written during a period of insanity is, well, it's exactly what it sounds like, a direct, unfiltered window into his mind during a crisis. And as we saw, The Castaway uses that gut punch of a metaphor, the drowning sailor, to describe what it feels like to be utterly and completely lost. So who was William Cowper really? A poet of faith? A poet of despair? A lover of nature? Well, the answer is, of course, that he was all of those things. But his complexity doesn't even end there. Yeah, you heard that right. Hilarious. The same man who wrote some of the most heartbreaking poetry in the English language was also capable of writing laugh-out-loud comedy that became an absolute smash hit. His comic ballad, The Diverting History of John Gilpin, was basically the viral sensation of its day. Seriously. It's the silly, wonderful story about a guy whose horse gets spooked, leading to this completely ridiculous misadventure. It just shows this incredible range, a sharp wit that proves his genius wasn't just for the serious and the sad. And when you lay out his career like this, on a timeline, the emotional whiplash is just stunning. I mean, look at it. He swings from the deep faith of the only hymns to the slapstick humor of John Gilpin just 3 years later, then to the serene calm of The Task, before ending his life with the profound despair of The Castaway. It's like a map of a brilliant and profoundly human mind. And all of this leaves us with a final thought. William Cowper's life kind of poses this timeless question about art and suffering. Was his incredible creativity forged because of his pain, or was it an act of profound resilience, a way of creating light and beauty in spite of the darkness that was always there? It's a question his incredible legacy really forces us to think about.